Vasudha eva kutumbakam. The whole universe is one family. The whole universe belongs to me. Welcome back to the study of the Bhagavad Gita. Previously, Sri Krishna told us that the actions that we need to perform in this world must be performed at all costs. There is no doubt about that. Karma jayo hi akarmanaha. This is a very wonderful concept in the Bhagavad Gita. Performing work is better than not doing work. Why? Because in the next verse, he says that this whole universe has been built on the structure called yajna. This is the structure or the philosophy on which the whole universe has been created, or the universe has been expanded, so to say. Therefore, karma jayo. Therefore, you cannot just give up work and say that I am naishkarmya. Naishkarmya means I have reached a state wherein I need not perform any action at all, that I need not contribute anything at all to the universe. One should not say that. Sharira yatra pichate. Why? He says sharira, even for the maintenance of your own physical being, physical body, you need to perform some work. Just as now our doctors are all saying that even if you cannot walk much, you should make some effort at least to move your legs. Even if you cannot lift your arm, you lift your hand, you must move your arm up and down, and so on and so forth. It is for the physical betterment, as well as that you do not become a burden to anyone at all. So there is this dual purpose as well. So in the ninth verse, Sri Krishna says to us, Yajnarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sangaha samachara. O son of Kunti, in this world of actions, unless they are done as an offering to God or as an yajna, the work becomes the cause of bondage. Therefore, work for the sake of God without personal attachment. And Sri Krishna brings in this concept of yajna here in this chapter for the first time, and he will be developing this concept later in greater detail as well. But I thought we should dwell upon this one word called yajna. What is yajna? Yajna, in a broader sense, it is a participation of ourselves as well as the participation of the divine in this universe. Our self-participation as well as the participation of the divine. So, through the awareness, a higher awareness, we start participating in it. That means it is an intentional, it is a deliberate action that we are doing every day. One is voluntary action, the other is involuntary action. We do many of our actions involuntary, breathing and so on, so forth. Everything happens involuntary. But when we do it with respect and with intention, or with voluntary movement, so to say, then it becomes a greater path for us to become free. We should always note that all of life, the whole entire universe, is evolving towards a higher level of consciousness. Whether you believe it or not, but that is the truth. All of us are moving from a truth, Swami Vivekananda's words. A man is traveling not from untruth to truth, but from a truth that is lower to a truth that is higher. There is no negativity in Swami Vivekananda's philosophy. That's why he says, even what you call as asat, that has also got some truth in it, but it is a lower type of truth, which is not helping us much. Therefore, we need to move onward and go onward. That's what the Upanishads say. Charai veti, go onward and onward. Do not just sit or do not be stagnant anywhere. Keep on moving further and further. Therefore, all of life is evolving towards a higher level of consciousness. And evolution is basically, it is based on this law of sacrifice, which in Sanskrit is called the law of yajna. See, in the lowest level, that is the Darwinian theory, there is the struggle for existence and the survival of the fittest. What happens? The rest who are weak, they are sacrificed for the sake of the fittest person, or at least they are left behind. So that is the Darwinian's theory, which is an accepted theory in evolution. But Vedanta moves a little further. It says there are two more stages of evolution. What is the next stage? The next stage is that there is a struggle for knowledge. First of all, there was only just a struggle for survival. Now you have evolved a little higher. As you evolved a little higher, you have started having queries about who am I, what am I, why am I here, what is my relationship with the universe, what is my relationship with somebody or God. So there is this jignasa or this aspiration. I call this as aspiration. So the second rung is, there is this chetana or chit, consciousness has awakened, and you want to start knowing. We can see this from at the young age of children. When a baby is very small, for the first month or two, the baby is completely at the mercy of the father or the mother, always trying to attract attention towards itself or herself, himself or herself, and trying to somehow struggle to survive. That is it. Then comes this chetana, this chit. It starts working in the child, and then it starts asking questions, looks here and there, and then wants to know who you are, what you are, etc. So this is very natural in our human evolution itself. So now coming to spiritual evolution, the second is this chetana, this aspiration starts working in us. We keep on asking questions, chetana. And so, but here also, those who are extremely sharp and those who keep on asking questions, those who want to know, they go forward faster, and those who do not, they go slower. Some of them also are lost in the educational system, so to say. But then comes a stage where one achieves to the maximum of this intellectual or the knowledge stage, and then one goes even further. That is the Ananda stage, the experience stage, where saints and seers, they achieve. What happens is, once they achieve to that stage, they see that The whole universe is myself and I am everywhere. I, as a part and parcel of the divine, as an amsha of the divine, am everywhere. He sees that once a Chaitana, that one's consciousness is spread everywhere. That is when the sage says, Vasudha eva kutumbakam. The whole universe is one family. The whole universe belongs to me. I am in the universe, I am the universe, and the universe is in me. If you ever study the Ashtavakra Samhita, Ashtavakra Gita or Ashtavakra Samhita, there you will find the expressions of this joy of becoming one with the universe. That is the highest stage. And what happens is, the life of such a person will be converted as a life of continuous giving. All this time, one has taken from life, from the child to up to that evolution, one has taken everything. Now, it will be a continuous state of giving and giving and giving. So, coming back to this concept of yajna, what is life? Life, jivana is in Sanskrit or any other languages. So jivana is a channel for the flow of this divine power. If we block it, that means if we block that divine power flowing through it, then there is all these trials and tribulations that we find in life. But if we let it flow, if the pure water keeps on flowing, it just removes all the dirt and dust in the pipe, and then it goes and it comes out as abundant water. So life is this channel for the flow of this divine power. And yajna is a means or a system wherein we keep this channel open, keep this channel full of supplies, so to say, full of purity. So we need to let this purity enter and clear all the obstacles. Performing karma yoga or jnana yoga or bhakti yoga is nothing but this effort for us to clear this channel of the divine through our system. How do we do it? We begin with making God the receiver. See, in the Upanishads, in the Vedas, we find Yajno Vai Vishnu. That means that Yajna, that means that Vishnu, that Supreme Being, is the one who is the receiver. Therefore, all my offerings are given to that divine being. He receives our sacrifice, and he is so-called goal of all human beings. Tad Vishnu paramam padam sada pashyanti suraya diviva chakshuratatam. Tad Vishnu paramam. That state is of the Vishnu, and therefore all of my actions are going towards the divine. This is how the concept of yajna began. Slowly and slowly it started evolving, so to say. But as we keep on advancing, we realize that God is not only the goal, but He is also the starting point of everything. God is not only the end of everything, but is also the beginning of everything. In the Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, Sri Krishna mentions this. Tameva chadyam purusham prapadye yatah pravrittir prasutah purani. Tameva chadyam. He is the prime mover. He is the sole mover from whom all actions, all works originated at the beginning of time. That is how Sri Krishna defines this Yajna, Vishnu over there. Now, whatever comes from him and whatever goes, goes to him. In Hindi, you all sing that one. Tumhara tujhko arpan. What is that? I cannot remember the whole thing. Tumhara. Na?
तुझको अर्पण क्या लागे मेरा.
Kya lage mera. So it belongs to you and it goes back to you. What does it matter to me? So that is what it is. From him it comes and unto him it goes back. Our activities are nothing but just an act of receiving from God and giving it back to God. We also need to see how much we have received and how much we have held, or how much we have spent. So that is called as God's balance sheet. We need to have a balance sheet of that. It's good to see what is the debit and credit in our life. For example, you are listening. It is income to you. I am talking and it is expenditure to me. Even though I receive it and give it back to you, definitely. And you are learning, that is your income, and I am teaching, and that is my expenditure. You receive love from somebody, that is your income, and you give love to somebody, you give your affection to somebody, that is your expense. To be hated by somebody is your income. And for you to hate others is your expenditure. To have good health is your income, and to have disease is our expenditure. To have purity within ourselves is our income, and then to commit sin is an expenditure. So if we can go on tabulating all of these income and expenditure, so to say, we will find that all kinds of income may not be beneficial to us, but it comes. We do not have a choice over there. It comes, and whatever goes also, it goes back. Only when we need to be very careful while spending it. What we are spending, that must be we must be very careful. So it comes from the divine and it goes back to the divine. This is basically the law of sacrifice, or the law of yajna. Now, when it comes to the case of a saint, or even spiritual seekers like you all, we have to keep a close watch on what is received and how much I really need to use, and the rest, whatever is there, goes back to the divine. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna later talks about three things: yajnaha, tapassi, dani cha. In this, talking about the sat, defining sat, Sri Krishna says yajnaha. Yajnaha is this whole concept wherein you bring in and then you give out. And then tapas. What is tapas? Tapas is that you keep only the minimum for your needs and you give away the greater portion of it, whatever is excess, or even sometimes you starve yourself, or you lessen your own luxury, and then you give away most of it. That is known as the tapas. Tapas is austerity. Austerity is where you receive something, you have a lot, but then you give away most of it. Yajnaha, tapasi, dana. Dana is that act of giving away. In tapas, you do not hoard anything, whereas in dana, you give away whatever you have. Yajna, tapas, and dana. Yajna is like, how can I say? Yajna is the main body, so to say, and the tapas and dana are the two wings of yajna. And this continuous renewal is going on in this universe. If you can analyze the whole universe that we live in, we find that there is this continuous renewal that is going on. The sun gives, it is all giving, and then there is continuous renewal. We receive waters from the oceans, and it is always being renewed. There is this continuous renewal. Wherever there is stagnancy, wherever there is a stoppage of this continuous flow, there we find lot of selfishness, we find lot of trials and tribulations, etc. Therefore, this concept of yajna, Sri Krishna is trying to impress upon us that we all have this great responsibility of giving back to nature, giving back to the universe, giving back to the community where we are. Continuous renewal. Do not withhold anything to yourself. That is the concept of yajna in very short, but I will expand it a little more. Now, through yajna, one finds, through this constant sacrifice, one finds place in Ritam. Ritam is a very particular Vedic term to represent cosmic harmony. Ritam is cosmic harmony. When we say something false or some lie, or when we do something wrong, that is called as anrita. That means you are not holding on to rita, you are not holding on to harmony, you are not holding on to peace. So rita and anrita. This rita, it continuously fills us with great and greater and greater happiness, greater and greater joy. All the saints and seers about whom we hear or we read, they were all established in this rita, in this cosmic harmony. Therefore, there was no dichotomy in them. There was no duality in them. They were one whole, so to say. That is called as the rita. And once you experience once you enter into that rita, that cosmic harmony, one enjoys total freedom and total bliss. So, to sum it up once again, this conscious performance of yajna, continuous renewal process, it speeds up the process of our evolutionary transformation. It just keeps on speeding it up, and it enables us in participating in the progression of the universe, or in the development of the universe to our full capacity. Therefore, Sri Krishna says here that as long as you are endowed with strength, as long as endowed with your capacity, keep on performing actions for the welfare of others. Welfare of others here does not mean social welfare. Here, welfare of others means this constant offering to the divine, who is manifesting Vasudha Eva Kutumbakam. The whole universe is my own family. Therefore, I am continuously, just as a mother or father is continuously working for the sake of the children. In the same way, a spiritual aspirant is continuously working. Sri Krishna mentions in one of the verses, he says, there is no duty for me to perform in the three worlds, he says, but yet I continuously keep on performing all the actions. Why? Because this yajna, this concept of, or this chakra, yajna chakra, this wheel of yajna has been started by me, and therefore I keep on performing it, so that others follow what I do. That is the idea. However, we need to note that the aim of yajna is not just to lead a well-adjusted, happy going life, which can be done in Marxist philosophy also. There is this constant giving, give and take. Marxist philosophy says that. But here it has two dimensions, which Sri Krishna has spoken here. Tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachara. And then in the next verse, he will talk about that. So here what Sri Krishna is trying to say is that this yajna has got two dimensions. What are the two dimensions? One is known as the vertical dimension. What is the vertical dimension? By performing these actions in a disinterested spirit, it is leading you higher and higher and higher. You are going vertically, you are reaching higher and higher. And then there is a horizontal level, or the horizontal dimension also, where you find a greater and greater harmony within yourself as well as with the people around you. There is total control over yourself, and yet there is greater freedom within yourself. There is control as well as freedom within oneself. This is the concept of the two dimensions, not the concept, that these are the two dimensions of yajna. First, it takes you higher and higher. On the other hand, it also brings in peace and harmony within our life. So that is the basic difference between a materialistic or a Marxist philosophy and the philosophy of Vedanta. There is no higher aspiration. Here, there is higher aspiration. I am growing higher in stature. I am becoming one with the divine. Aham Brahmasmi. I am becoming one with the divine. I am going higher and higher and reaching greater and greater realizations. So, yajnarthat karmanonyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha. Yajnartha tadartham karma kaunteya mukta sanga samachar. Therefore, he says sanga mukta. That means perform the action without personal attachment. By relinquishing the desire for fruits, one attains to that sense of harmony, that sense of freedom. Now, why should we perform karma or actions as yajna or as sacrifice? In the next 4 verses, Sri Krishna is going to give us some inclination about this. Saha yajñah praja srishtva purovacha prajapatihi anena prasavishyadvam eshavostvishta kamaduk. In the beginning, Prajapati, having created men together with yajna, that is selfless work dedicated to God or Vedic sacrifice as their duty, declared, by this shall you multiply. May this be to you the cow of plenty, yielding all your wants. Saha yajna praja srishtva. In Hindu mythology, Prajapati is the name given to the creator Brahman. So that is called as creator Brahma, the creator. Sahayajna Prajapatihi, the Lord of all prajas, of all creation, is known as Prajapatihi. Sahayajna, what is the material by which he created the universe? He created it with this yajna. Yajna is the material. So through the yajna, he says, anena prasavishyadvam. By this, let you multiply, keep on multiplying by this yajna. And may this be your ishtakamadu. That is, if you follow this path of yajna, this will yield to you all of your wants. In the Bhagavad Gita, elsewhere, Sri Krishna talks about yoga and kshema. These two words are used in the Bhagavad Gita. Yoga is to get, to obtain, and then kshema is to take care of it, to maintain it. Kshema. You earn something or you go and buy something very expensive, and you bring it and then you keep it in a safe place so that it does not get damaged. This is called as yoga and kshema. Now by this process of yajna, you are receiving, and yajna also helps you to maintain it. You maintain it as long as you need it, and then when the need is over, then it becomes somebody else's property or it goes back into nature. So this is also what you nowadays call as circular economy, isn't it? Circular economy. Bring it and then use it and then you give it back to the society. So anena prasavishyadvam yeshavaha astu ishtakamaduk. Let it be your ishtakamaduk, means your cow, that is Kamadhenu, the cow, celestial cow, yielding all your wants. And then in the next verse, he says, Devan bhavayatanena te deva bhavayantuvaha parasparam bhavayantaha shreyah paramavapsyatha. Anena, with this, Devan, the devas bhavayato. You cherish the devas with yajna, and may the devas in turn bless you. That means with rain and other desired gifts. Thus, mutually cherishing, you shall attain the highest good. If you put it in the modern scientific language, what it says is that you receive everything from nature and then you give back to nature. You receive from there and then you give it back to nature. For example, just to give a little more explanation to this, we have the 5 elements: Akasha, Vayu, Agni, then Prithvi, and then Apa, that's water, and then Prithvi, that means the earth. These are the 5 elements that we have. Now, to go back a little bit historically to the Vedic ages, when the Vedic rishis began their journey in this world, they were amazed by the richness of nature. They went on asking questions. Who is it that is providing us with this bounty? The sun is shedding his light so that the plants can grow, and then the rain is shedding its water so that the plants can grow again. Then the air is also giving us air to breathe, and then of course the mother Prithvi, the earth, is giving us all the necessary crops, etc. So they were quite in awe of these elements. So they started eulogizing. They started giving a name to each of these elements. To the ether, they called it as Indra. And then to the Vayu, that means to the air, they started calling him Vayu Devata, god of the Vayu, of air. Then they started calling the one who is giving water, rain, as the Varuna Devata. And then they started calling the Prithvi, that means the earth, as Prithvi Mata. Like this, they started eulogizing, giving them the different names, and then taking them to be their the ideals. You know, if you see some of the Vedic hymns, you will see that Vayu is mentioned as you are the highest of all the deities. In another context, they will call the rishi will say that Varuna is the highest deity, and then in some other context you will see that Prithvi is the highest. Prithvi Matarma, she is the mother of all of us, and then again they will call Indra, the sun also as the highest deity, and so on and so forth. So they were trying to figure out to whom Kasmai Devaya Havisha Vidhema, to whom shall I offer all my oblations, to whom shall I offer all my respect. They went on questioning this. Then they found out that all of these, the five elements as well as the sun and the moon, all of these together, they help us to grow. Together, they help us to live. Thus, then they started going deeper and deeper into themselves and asking this question, well, all these other deities are also governed or ruled by somebody else. And who is that? And that is how the quest to find out who is the highest or greatest among all of them comes. And then you will find in the Kena Upanishad, the mention of the Divine Mother comes over there, etc. We will not take that up right now. So the idea was that they started offering their oblations. That means oblation here means offering their respects to all of these elements, because it is from them that we have received, and to them I pay my respect, I pay my oblations. So that is how this concept. So here he says, Sahaya Devan Bhavayata. Deva, the term Deva means one who is bright, one who is brilliant. Diva means Diya, it comes, the term Diya comes from the same word Deva. So ideally we are all Devas. We are all Devas, that means we are all sentient creatures. Therefore, the way Deva is also the name for any sentient creatures. Even the different parts of the body are also called as Devas. So Devan Bhavayata Anena, with this, that means with this process of continuous renewal, you cherish the Devas. That is, you cherish the nature. Te Devaha. When you do that, what happens? There is this reciprocal from the divine. The Devas also will cherish you. They may cherish you. Parasparam bhavayantaha. This is very important. That means mutually cherishing each other. There should be this mutual understanding or this mutual cherishing. When you do that, Shreyaha param Shreyaha avapsyata. You will reach to the highest great or highest goodness. This is a very important verse wherein Devan Bhavayatanina. Continuously, when I receive something, I give it back to them. You know, when our mothers used to cook in India, we used to see it. I'm not sure how much is done here. When the food was cooked, the mother would take out 5 morsels or 5 portions of the food, and the 5 make it into small balls or whatever it is, and then keep it aside. So I would ask, why is it that you are keeping it there? I said, oh no, this has to be given to the animals, the cats or dogs or strays, whatever it's there. I'm going and giving it to them. Actually, it came from this idea that the Panchabhutas, that the five elements, I receive everything from the five elements. Therefore, these five portions go unto them. And of course, it is not then given. Even in Brahmins, when they do Sandhya Vandana, later it evolved into the prana, pancha prana. Prana is swaha, apana is swaha, vyana is swaha, udana is swaha, samana is swaha. The five pranas, the five expressions of the life force is known as the pancha prana. So all those five pranas came into existence later on. So this then came Pancha Mahayagnyas, etc. So the idea was that you give back to the divine, or you remember with great reverence, with gratitude, those elements which has given you this food, which has given you everything that I start using it today. So that is how this Devan Bhavayatanina, every day we make the offerings to the Devas. Ishthan bhogan hi vo deva dasyante yajna bhavitaha tairdattana pradayebhyo yo bhunkte stena eva saha. Yajna bhavitaha, worshipped by these sacrifices, the devas will give you the desired objects of enjoyment. They are verily thieves who enjoy their gifts without giving their share in return. See, Sri Krishna almost chides us, scolds us, and says, look, if you do not do that, then you are a thief. Who is a thief? One who takes something without your permission is a thief, naturally. So here, it belongs to the divine, it belongs to the elements, and we are taking it from them, and then we do not ask permission of them, or we do not even give thanks to them. See, most of you who are practitioners of a Hindu faith, you all know that when you go in the morning to go and pluck one of the tulasi leaves, then also you utter a mantra. Beg for the pardon from Mother Tulasi and say, oh Mother, I am touching you and I am taking some of your leaves, so please pardon me. See, what a wonderful concept we have in our culture. So whatever you take from nature, you ask for permission from him or her or from that deity, and then you enjoy it. And then it becomes yajna shishta. That means it becomes, in the next verse he says, it becomes a prasada. He says next one, yajna shishtashinas santo muchyante sarva kilbishaihi bhunjate te tvagham papa ye pachantyatma karanat. Those persons who eat what is left after sacrifice, that means after offering to the deities, after offering to nature, whatever you take it, then what happens? You are released from all sin. That means you are no more a thief. You are a legitimate person who have not stolen anything from somebody, or who has not been ungrateful to anyone. That he calls, that ungratefulness is called as sin over here. But those who could cook food for the self alone without sharing it with others, such degraded men eat sin. Very strong words over here. That means you are doing such a heinous act wherein you do not share it with the other beings around you. See, what a rich culture we have. Early morning, we used to see our mothers go out, clean the front yard, and then they would bring out the rice powder and put the kolam or the alpana, whatever you call it, the design over there, mandala design. Why? We never knew that. Later came all this artificial chalk and other things, unfortunately, which is of no use. Why? The ants would come, the insects would come, Instead of coming inside the house and becoming a pest, they will just come there, eat it, and go back to their nests. What a wonderful scientific concept it was. So, all these concepts are extraordinary. And Sri Krishna is reinforcing these concepts to us. Yajna Shishtha, those who eat what is left after sacrifice. That means after giving thanks to the divine, whatever you take, then you need to, that becomes a prasada. That means it will not contaminate you. It will not cause any, in modern language, any negative impulses, any negative reactions in us. That is why when I was in Belur Math, I remember very clearly one day I was taking a walk in front of in front of the temple. A lady came and then she stopped me and she said, "Swamiji, can you tell me something?" "Yes, mother, tell me what you want." "See, the other day I asked the cook of Belur Math to give me the recipe for the payas that they make, the kheer that they make. So he gave me the recipe, the very same cook who makes the payas. And then I went and made it. But I have to tell you that it nowhere comes near to the taste of the prasad that I have at the Belur Math." "So what is the secret? Do they add something else?" I said, "Yes, they add something else. That is the grace of the divine is there. That is why it is called prasad. So you make the offering over there at your home also, it will also taste much better. There is no doubt about that." So, Yajna Shishthasina Santo. It is indeed true that whatever you offer with great love to the divine accepts it. If we are dualists, we can say that God definitely accepts. And Holy Mother Sharda Devi, she would she used to see this. Every day after she would cook her food, she will put the food in front of Sri Ramakrishna, and she would see the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, the light from Sri Ramakrishna's picture come and accept it. So one day she was in the railway station, a place called Vishnupur in Bengal. She was there waiting for the train to come. In those days, trains would come when they wanted to come. There was no timetable as such. So she was there, and it was time for lunch time. So she went out and took some firewood, gathered some firewood, and got some pot, and then she started cooking all of that. And then as she was taking out the khichdi from the pot, somehow the pot broke, earthen pot, it broke. And then Holy Mother became very upset. And then she started scolding Sri Ramakrishna. "What did you do? You have broken the pot." Now she took from the top of that, leaving the bottom, and she took from the top of it, put it on a leaf plate, and told Sri Ramakrishna, now, come, the train is going to come. Eat, so that we can also have prasad and then we can go. See, these are mystics who could relate to the divine, who could see the presence of the divine. So if we have the same kind of attitude when we do our offerings, whether it be food offerings or whether we perform our actions in such a manner that it is an offering to the divine, then it becomes yajna. That becomes a sacrifice. And then Sri Krishna says that when you do so, then agham, that means the sin will not accrue to you. The sin will not accrue to you. The karma phalas, the results of your actions will no more be binding to us. Otherwise, it will bind us. It will be no more binding to us. So that is where we need to stop here. Then in the next verse, which is related to this, Sri Krishna talks about the Annad Bhavanti Bhutani, how food is made from the bhutas, etc. We will come to that a little next time when we discuss this. We will come to that and conclude this topic of yajna through that. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.